Signs in the sun, moon, and stars. We're back with the celestial gospel calendar, tracking down ROSH HASHANAH 2020. With all the confusions, all the calendars, all the craziness, we're here to restore time back to the ancient ways of tracking time using the sun, the moon, and the stars. Yom Kippur, October 11th, the Jubilee New Year. Let's dig deeper. First thing we're going to do is go to Sister Sabine's video from, I believe it was a couple days ago. We need to hear this information about the star in the shoulder of Virgo. Let's listen.
So this is the star ZANIAH, Eta Virginis, and the sun will be exactly lined up vertically on September 27th. And that is the star in the left shoulder of Virgo. And over here you can see the complete positioning of here the constellation Virgo, her left shoulder, and the sun being at ZANIAH. And that is exactly over the middle of crater, the cup of mixture, and that points to judgment. So the cup is already like tilting, as in that the cup of judgment will be poured out. So the name ZANIAH is derived from the Arabic al-Zawiyah, meaning the corner, and that may in turn be indicated in the prophecy of Rabbi Yitzhak Geduri. And he shared prior to his death, after having identified the Messiah as Jesus, which caused a huge uproar in the rabbinical community and was later covered up even by his own disciples. He spoke about Jesus, the Messiah, being just around the corner. So that struck me as being potentially really striking. And ZANIAH in Hebrew means God hears. And I was reminded of the many times in the scriptures where Jesus reminds us in the book of Revelation 1-3 that he that hath an ear, let him hear. So the alignment of the sun in Virgo, of course, reminds us of the Revelation 12 sign. This is a picture of Ivanka Trump, and she was reenacting this Virgo sign. And we've seen artists like Beyonce and currently Lady Gaga doing the same. But the royals in England do it too with Meghan Markle. She has been cast into the role of the Virgin, being clothed with the sun many times. So here you see Ivanka Trump, the transgendered daughter/son of Trump, playing the role of the Virgin, clothed with the sun from Revelation 12:1. And that was in Japan at the G20 summit in November 2016. So if you take a short look at the ground plan of Washington, you can actually see hidden within that ground plan the so-called Kite of Isis, and that is a top-down view of the pyramids of Giza and the shadow being cast. And it is a reflection of the heavens of the star ZANIAH, the tip of the Masonic compass, all the way to the King star Regulus. And this is, so the sun being at this point in ZANIAH, that happened at the time of the birth of the U.S., and it may also be the timestamp of the controlled demolition of the U.S. And so many authors have written about the secret architecture of Washington, D.C. and New York reflecting the heavens. One of them is Watchman Lou Vega. And in this article, I link a couple of his studies on topic, and I highly recommend them because they're really insightful, and especially the graphics really help you to form a picture. So if we look at the Washington Mall, we see the altar, the Lincoln Memorial, and Lincoln is being positioned in the office of a judge or a high priest, and his head is formed like a Janus god, as the god of portals, of heavenly gates. Then we see a picture of the laver, the pillars of Jachin and Boaz, then the entryway into the mall, and that is a reflection of the entire construct is a reflection of the tabernacle. So we see the table of showbread over here, the menorah, the altar of incense, and then the Holy of Holies. So if this pattern of that ground plan in Washington is used, we may expect the kickstart of the controlled demolition to have something to do with Lincoln.
Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Stellarium, and here you see, let's scroll in. ZANIAH, Ada Virginis, and 13 Virginis. And these two stars are in the shoulder of the constellation of Virgo. And as you heard Sister Sabine talking about the corner, to me that is a warning of the turn, the corner, the coming. And it is a sign to me of Parima, because the sun, the moon, stars, they all come through the ecliptic in this direction, unless they are in retrograde. And we know that as the sun comes down and aligns with Virginis, then we know that what we're looking at with this ZANIAH alignment is a pointer to what is coming, which is the turn of the year. We're looking at the Feast of Trumpets. In the ancient times, before the Exodus, the time for the New Year was always known to be the Feast of Trumpets. And there are many different calendars and many different ways of looking at time, depending on whether you're using the moon, whether you're using harvest times, or you're on a full moon chart, or a dark phase chart, or a sliver moon chart. There are so many different ways that people are tracking time. And as a watchman, I have been doing this job for over 20 years. And I've been studying in depth the Dead Sea Scrolls, all of the lost books, and going through the scriptures in depth to find the details that are needed to restore time. And in reading that End Times in 2019 and doing deep research in the Dendera and all of the ancient ways that man was tracking time, I was able to put together exactly what was going on with the stars. Because the stars are telling a story with their names. And these stars don't move. They're in the same position that they were in ancient times. So what I did is I went back to the time of Messiah, and I tracked exactly where his birth happened with the sun. And what I did is I went back to 33 AD at the very end, and I looked at the sign of what was happening at September 11th in 33 AD. And I found some very interesting things. The first thing that I found is that the sun was in the middle section of the womb. And what that means is that the sun here, let's look at our time. We're looking at 10/2/2020. The sun is aligned with Parima in what we consider the womb area of Virgo. So for those of you who have watched my previous videos or who have done their research in the Mazzaroth, you will know that this section between Parima and Spica and over is the womb section of Virgo. And as the planets and the sun and the moon come and enter or pass Parima, some of them will come in actually through this section of the constellation, and sometimes they will be just below the ecliptic. And when they're on the top of the ecliptic, then they show the sign very strongly because they come right through the womb, just as Jupiter did in 2017 when it was in the womb from, I believe, it was the end of November or the beginning of December in 2016, and did not come out until September the 9th in 2017. So the sign of Revelation 12 was not the actual birth of Jupiter. It was when the moon came underneath the feet. So we know that Jupiter marked this area of Virgo. And we know that in ancient times that the Messiah was born with the sun in the middle of the womb section. So what I'm doing is going back and restoring the time based on the ancient way of looking at things, with the stars being the storytellers, and the sun and the moon and the planets fitting into the story. Not being the storytellers, but the stars being the storytellers. And we know almost everybody that I have spoken with, all who know anything about the stars, everybody considers Spica the harvest. And we can see that in the pictograms of Virgo with the wheat sheaf in Virgo's hand. And on the other side, she has a corn or to me it looks like a corn sheaf. And in this hand she has her wheat sheaf. And so Spica to me is tabernacles, because tabernacles is called the ingathering, and tabernacles is the harvest. And if you, we're going to do it right here. We've done this before in prior videos, so forgive me if this is repeating, but there are many new people who do not understand these things. So we need to break them down for everybody to truly understand how this works. Parima, Sun alignment, 10/2/2020. Now let's go through the days. We know from the Feast of Tabernacles, to the Feast of Trumpets is a 15-day period. So we're on 10-2, day 2, day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so here we are on the restored calendar, Feast of Tabernacles, where the sun aligns with Spica, and the moon is our witness. And when I was originally breaking down this calendar, I had it as the 3rd and the 17th, because the sun doesn't pass this line of Spica until the 17th. But in doing my research, I realized that if you study the Metonic cycle, the moon will always align with the sun in that exact point every 19 years. And here we are on the 16th, with the moon coming back into play as our witness. So the moon as the witness, with the sun and Spica aligning, is our Feast of Tabernacles. So, if we go back and we start again at day 1, the beginning of the year, and we track back to the middle of the womb, then what we are looking at is a repeat in the heavens of where the Messiah was born. Even though it was September 11th, in the ancient times, almost 2,000 years ago, that does not mean that it is September 11th today, because of the wobble of the planet, the ecliptic and the equinoxes, and the precession of the equinoxes through the ages changes the time. And if we adjust all of our time based on everything but the stars, then the story is not there anymore, family. It is gone. So, I believe that in order for us to have proper time, we have to use the exact stars and the alignment of the sun with these stars in order for our time to be proper. And so what we're looking at here is 10/9/2020 being the birth of Messiah, and this being the 8th day is the ancient Feast of Dedication. And if Messiah was born on day 1 of the Feast of Dedication, then on the 8th day, this would be his circumcision. The 8th day being the first day, the first and the last. And this would be the Feast of Tabernacles, when Messiah was circumcised and brought into the temple. I believe we are seeing our time restored with the moon as the witness. We are also seeing Comet Neowise right there as a witness. And there are other asteroids that I have to plug into this and I will come back and do that for another video. But I believe what we are seeing here is time restored based on the sun, the moon, and the stars.